Morning, everybody. What I wanted to do this morning is make a little bit of a follow-up video to the interview I had last night with Patricia in reference to the concept of time and a little bit about the universe's timelines, realities, and dimensions and how they fit together. Maybe a little bit better explanation for the timeline and reality differences, and make it a little easier to understand and answer some of the questions that people have had in reference to that. I want to talk a little bit about the time, simply because time is probably one of, if not the biggest and most intrusive programs that we have in our lives. And I think the better people can understand about what time is and how it operates, the easier that their life may become when they're able to, and how they deal with things. So one of the things that happens if you find some books and you go online on YouTube, you will find videos that are showing different objects that have been found in rock. Things like in coal. There was a gold necklace, there was teapots, there were hammers, there were something that looked like a spark plug, and there's been other type of what we would consider technological items that have been found in rocks that are anywhere from 50,000 years old to a couple 100 million years old. And these objects have been found embedded in the rock, indicating that, and at depths as well, indicating these objects were there, and then the rock and or the coal formed around the object. And science has been very hesitant to even come up with an idea about those, because it doesn't fit into any of their pre-described programs. And so they just kind of put it off as a novelty and passed on. And so what I wanted to explain to you in reference to time, what that really is that if you look at the concept of past, present, and future being simultaneous, the object that they are finding, like the gold necklace, the teapot, the hammer, those items were made, worn, dropped, buried, and converted into rock all at the same time. Because remember, time is a concept that we have placed upon things. We like to put the idea of age on everything in order to make it fit into our little time programs, the universe and everything else. So in reality, those items that they're finding were dropped, buried, and formed inside the rock at the same time. That it all occurred simultaneously, so that there is no concern for them about why it took 200 million years, how it could get there, when the idea is that people supposedly didn't exist at that time frame. No, that time frame didn't exist either. It is all simultaneous. I wanted to kind of hit that a little bit. And then an idea on the universe's timelines, realities, and dimensions that might make it a little easier to understand. A universe is a thought. It is an idea. It could be like a concept, a theorem, something like you have in science. The example is, I think that this universe that we are in is a universe of darkness that is seeking light, meaning that we have the concept of the universe was to see how deep we could go down the rabbit hole, how much could we forget, how deep can we go into the reality before we get lost and aren't able to remember who and what we are. It's kind of the fallen angel concept. And again, we left ourselves a lot of different clues along the way, like the Bible and other religious texts that we wrote, ancient writings and manuscripts. We wrote those and we left them for ourselves so that we would have clues. And it's going to stump those who are not awake or understanding of, but to those who are starting to understand and will wake up will see these things as analogies and see that they are clues pointing to who and what we are, so we can help ourselves to move forward. So imagine the universe, say our universe, as a mountain. And our goal is to get to the top of this mountain. We're starting out at a parking lot from the bottom, and from that bottom there are multiple trails that will take us to the top of the mountain, each of them going a little bit different way. And those are timelines. It's getting to the same destination, but it's taking a little bit different route, another possibility of how that objective could be achieved. So if you see the different trails as being different timelines, and then as you go upon that trail, what you see along the way and experience are the different realities, and they are within each of those timelines, and they're going to be a little bit different, but because we're in the same universe and our ultimate goal is the same, there are going to be some similarities between the realities we're experiencing within those different timelines. But each timeline has its own set of realities. Example, the one that we're in now is one timeline with one path to get to the top of this mountain. And what I accept as happening, and especially for those of us who think that we've come from other places, other worlds, to be here at this time, is that we have, and this entire universe has completed the timeline that we are on. Let's just call it the tech machine world timeline, because that seems to be a big point coming out now with AI and such. So we in the entire universe, because it's all simultaneous, have completed that trail, that path. We've focused, we've hit all the realities, we've gone to the top, we've seen the top of the mountain, we've got to the end of that timeline. And now we've come back down. And our goal here is to now switch to another trail to get to the top of the mountain again. In other words, to take another path in order to help us remember who and what we are in a little bit different way. And as we start off on this trail, we're going to find that there's going to be similarities like we're experiencing now with the concept of the AI, the more technology, the more machine, the idea of the human head transplant that they're talking about, what we're going to do in December. We're going to see the similarities between the two timelines because we're still close enough together, kind of like the two railroad tracks disappearing. And we have to have that overlap to where we make the change. So we're going to be seeing that machine tech timeline for a while. We're going to see parts of it come to light before we move far enough onto the other timeline in order to be able to separate completely from that, and then we'll no longer be seeing that timeline. That'll be a past memory. And then we'll follow the next timeline, we'll enjoy the realities along the way, and we will get to the top of the mountain and come back and do it again. And the one thing to remember as well, that there are a finite number of timelines within each universe. There's only so many ways you're going to be able to get to the top of the mountain. And it's the same with the realities along each timeline. There's only going to be just so many decisions and possibilities within each timeline and within those timelines themselves and realities that you can experience before you get to the top of the mountain. So yes, the universe that we are in and the experience we're having is going to be finite. How long it will take, I have no idea. Even though time is, remember, simultaneous, we are slowing it down, creating time in order to experience it. So that's the difference between a timeline and a reality. When we're shifting back and forth here, we are shifting realities, and yes, we are at this point shifting timelines as well. And we're just hitting that crossover at this point. What dimensions are within each timeline as well, and they also have their own realities. But each dimension is a level in which you are climbing that trail with less limitations than you had, say, at the 3D level, the 4D level, the 5D level. You're going to have less limitations upon you, and you're going to be able to do more as you move up the trail. An example would be, say, in 3D, if we want to take a trip from point A to point B, we take a car or a train, we walk, a boat, bus, plane, whatever it may be. Say in 4D, we may simply teleport ourselves to point B from point A without having to take a transportation. Although one thing to understand is that point A and point B are actually in the same place. We're not actually going anywhere. So when I refer to teleporting, I'm simply talking about shifting our awareness from one point to another virtually instantaneously, because you're not moving or going anywhere. There is nothing outside of where you are at the time. There is nothing existing beyond that. And that's actually a concept dealing a little bit with with time and quantum physics. They have a hard time attempting to correlate the quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity because they have a hard time with the speed of light. That is their primary issue. And as I actually wrote a letter to some independent quantum physicists who were doing research, and they initially thought that the string theory would help to tie it together, but it didn't. And as I said, the problem they're having is the speed of light, and the reason it's having a problem is because every time they measure it, it changes. And as I wrote to them, that's because the concept of speed, the concept of space and distance are illusions. They do not exist outside of where they are. So they're not going to be able to correlate the theories, because what they're looking for and attempting to place, and that is they're trying to create distance, they're trying to create speed, and they are actually illusions, which is why they're changing all the time, because of the awareness of the individuals who are looking for and attempting to find the answer to those issues. Of course, I never heard back from them, and I didn't expect to, but that's the reason that they're having problems, because like it says, speed, space, distance, everything in movement, that's all illusions. It's all those single frame pictures, as I mentioned before, and it's simply a matter of shifting our awareness. Light is a creation, energy and vibration are all creations in order to create what we call a physical reality, same as atoms. They were created specifically for this physical reality that we are in. There may very well be other universes in which the energy concept that we see as light, energy, and vibration do not exist as we see them. And that's another point that science has a hard time understanding, is that they're looking for everything in terms of what they already think they know here, what they have come up and deduced in this reality. They are attempting to apply that to other universes, and they're wondering why they're having so many difficulties. And it's because you have to think outside and beyond the limitations of what we're experiencing. And the idea that everything in all universes is similar and related to us is rather an egotistical idea, because we're thinking that humans are the basis of everything in that respect. And the other thing I brought up last night about the time is, when you look at the concept of the Pleiadians, you look at the Sirians, the Orions, the Arcturians, all the different entities and beings that are out there supposedly within this universe, you have to understand that they are us. They are humans in either past or future. And I say past or future because if you look at the things that have been channeled and written, is that the idea is that humans are a basis of DNA, of the DNA supposedly of all beings within the universe, which would mean that they would have had to give the DNA to us as the humans were created, which means they were in our past. They are also claimed to be from our future. They are us down the road, and that's the reason that humans have the DNA, so to speak, of the genetic makeup of everything in the universe, is because everything started with us. This may be that, as I mentioned earlier about going up the mountain, this may be that parking area, the point in what we call space-time, the trailhead, from which we access all other timelines within this universe, and that's why we are here. We've come from our past and from our future in order to change the timeline where we are, which, again, we're not changing anything, we're simply shifting our awareness to another trail to go up this mountain. So, anyway, I hope some of that clears that up a little bit, and thank you very much for listening.